Right in the middle of my vacation, my son texted me, "We know this is your beach house, but we want some alone time with my wife's parents, so please move to a hotel." I replied, "Understood." And then I made my final move. What happened an hour later made my in-laws beg my son to divorce their daughter. Dear listeners, before we begin this difficult story, I want to ask you a favor. If my story resonates with your heart, please like this video and subscribe to the channel, and write in the comments which city or state you are listening from. It warms my spirit to know how far my voice travels. Happy listening. The midday sun in the low country doesn't just warm you, it melts you. It burns away everything superfluous, leaving only the essence: scorching stone, the scent of dry Spanish moss, and the deafening ring of cicadas that makes your temples throb by evening. But here, on the terrace of Indigo Point, the heat felt different. The air was heavy not from the humidity, but from the icy silence that hung over the dining table. I stood at the kitchen island with my back to my guests, slicing a juicy, sugar-sweet watermelon. The knife slid into the flesh with a soft crunch. This was my kitchen. I had drafted this blueprint myself 20 years ago. I knew why the window faced exactly southwest, to catch the sunset rays without letting in the brutal midday heat. I remembered choosing these Italian tiles, the color of baked milk, arguing with the contractor about the height of the countertops. Every inch of this house was an extension of me, my will, my labor. But today, I felt like a ghost here, a disembodied spirit whose only task was to serve, clean, and disappear. At the large table on the terrace, under the shade of a pergola draped in wisteria, sat the masters of life. My son, Sterling, had his face buried in his plate, diligently avoiding my gaze. His shoulders were slumped, and in that posture, I saw the little boy who used to hide behind my skirt after breaking a neighbor's window. Only now, he wasn't hiding behind me, he was hiding from me. Opposite him sat Thaddeus and Zenobia Vance, my daughter-in-law's parents. They were eating the red snapper I had prepared with expressions that suggested they were doing the fish a favor by allowing it to be eaten. Zenobia, a heavy-set woman dripping in massive gold jewelry that looked ridiculous against the backdrop of a casual beach lunch, dabbed her lips with a napkin and pushed her plate away with disdain. "The fish is a little dry," she announced loudly, addressing no one in particular. "Remember that restaurant in Savannah, Thaddeus? The snapper was much more tender there." Grunted Thaddeus, not looking up from his phone. Service was different there, too. But the loudest voice belonged to Karis. My daughter-in-law sat at the head of the table, my table, pouring ice-cold wine into glasses. She wore a light white dress that accentuated her deep, glowing skin perfectly, but did nothing to hide the predatory expression on her face. She surveyed the terrace like a general inspecting conquered territory. "Mom, Dad, you have no idea what plans we have," she chirped. Her voice grated on my ears like metal on glass. "Sterling and I decided this wall here is completely unnecessary. We're going to tear it down, put in floor-to-ceiling glass, panoramic views. And this garden?" She waved her wineglass carelessly toward my rose bushes, which I had nurtured for years, selecting varieties resistant to the salt air. "Too old-fashioned. All these bushes and flower beds. We need minimalism, concrete, glass, manicured lawn. Right, Sterling?" Sterling flinched and nodded hurriedly, stuffing a piece of bread into his mouth. "Yes, babe, whatever you say." I froze with the platter of watermelon. Inside, somewhere near my solar plexus, a cold lump formed. They were discussing the destruction of my labor as if I weren't there, as if I were part of the decor, an outdated piece of furniture soon to be hauled to the dump. "Ms. Eulalia?" Karis's voice cracked like a whip. "We're out of wine. Bring another bottle from the fridge, and more ice. This ice has melted." She didn't even turn her head. She just snapped her fingers in the air. The Vances exchanged glances with a slight, barely noticeable smirk. In their world, there were only two types of people: those who are served and those who serve. To them, I, the owner of a villa worth a fortune, was just a squatter, a poor relative allowed to stay out of charity in exchange for kitchen duties. I exhaled slowly, counting to 3. Anger is a bad advisor. Anger is an emotion, and emotions destroy structure. As an architect, I knew that if a foundation cracks, you can't just plaster over it. But right now, I had to save face for the sake of my son, for the sake of the fragile peace I thought I was obligated to maintain. "I'll bring it right out," I said quietly. My voice was steady, no tremor. I placed the watermelon on the table, took the empty bottle, and retreated into the cool of the house. There, in the silence of the hallway, I leaned my forehead against the cool wall. My heart was pounding so hard it echoed in my ears. "Endure it, Eulalia," I told myself. "They're leaving in a week. You survived construction in the 90s. You survived divorce. You survived economic recessions. You can survive this rudeness." Returning with the wine, I caught Zenobia's gaze on me. It wasn't sympathetic. No, it held a patronizing curiosity, the kind one uses to look at a strange insect. "So, Eulalia, you do everything yourself? All by yourself?" she drawled. "We have help for that back home. Sterling says you just have nothing to do in retirement, so you fuss around." I didn't answer. I just poured their wine, feeling an invisible string inside me pulling tighter, stretching to the limit, beyond which lies the snap. "I need to go to the market," I said suddenly. The words came out on their own. I needed to leave, to break out of this circle of humiliation, to breathe air not saturated with the poison of arrogance. "We're out of fresh figs. Do you like figs with your cheese?" "Oh, go ahead," Karis tossed out carelessly, already turning back to her parents. "And pick up some of those large olives. Just don't get the cheap ones like last time." I grabbed my bag and walked out the gate without even changing my clothes. The sun hit my eyes, but I needed it. I walked down the winding street toward the ocean, past live oaks draped in moss standing like sentinels. The sound of the surf grew louder, drowning out the voices in my head. Here, among ordinary people, among the smells of fried shrimp, spices, and the sea, I usually felt alive. The market was buzzing. Vendors were calling out to customers. It smelled of dill and smoked mullet. I stopped at a stall with a familiar vendor to pick out figs, dark, purple, with skins cracking from ripeness. I was choosing the best fruit, out of habit caring for those I left back at the villa. And then, in the pocket of my linen sundress, my phone vibrated. I pulled it out, squinting against the sun. A message from Sterling. My heart skipped a beat. Maybe he felt ashamed? Maybe he wanted to apologize for his wife's behavior? I opened the chat. The letters danced before my eyes, but the meaning hit me instantly, like a punch to the gut. "Mom, we know this is your beach house, but Karis's parents feel uncomfortable. We want to be alone with them, discuss the family business. Please move to a hotel until the end of the week. We'll pay for the room." I froze in the middle of the market square. People flowed around me. Someone bumped my shoulder, muttering an apology, but I didn't hear them. The world around me had gone on mute. Your beach house. That's what he called my home, my sanctuary. Uncomfortable. In my own house. Move to a hotel. I reread the message, and again. The tears that had been rising to my throat for the last 2 hours suddenly vanished, evaporated like a drop of water on a hot iron. Instead of resentment, instead of the bitterness of an abandoned mother, something else arrived. A cold, crystal-clear understanding. I saw the structure of their lies. I saw the rot in the load-bearing pillars of our relationship. For years, I had closed my eyes to the cracks, patched them with my love, my money, my patience. But now the building had collapsed, and I had no intention of standing in the ruins. They want to be alone. They want to discuss family business in my house after kicking me out the door. Well then, I didn't call and scream. I didn't write long tirades about conscience and gratitude. I felt like a surgeon picking up a scalpel to cut out gangrene. I typed one word, understood, and pressed send. Then I closed the chat with my son. I didn't open a hotel booking app. I opened my contacts list and scrolled down to a name I hadn't dialed in 3 years, but kept just in case. Desmond, luxury real estate. The ringtone started immediately. I stood in the middle of the market, clutching a bag of figs in one hand that they were destined never to taste, and in the other, the phone that had become my detonator. "Hello, Ms. Eulalia." The voice on the line was surprised. "To what do I owe the pleasure? Haven't heard from you in ages." "Hello, Desmond," I said. My voice was as hard as the granite foundation of my house.